Let's play Who Signs Long Term first. Who signs long term first, Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray? Who signs long term first?
I would say Kyler. The communication between the Cardinals and Murray going back to February was that this was going to get done over the summer. And that was one of the reasons why Kyler was so upset because, I think he saw what happened with his ex-college teammate with Baker.
Yes, indeed. He went from winning the playoffs to sitting on a podcast couch with a dog looking for a belly scratch.
Right. That dog, by the way, was definitely the star of that video.
No, I would agree.
Yeah. I think, but that's part of it, right? Like, is that you see Baker like, oh, yeah, we'll take care of you. Just sit tight. And then Baker is where he is now. So, I think that Kyler and his camp are going to put enough pressure, and the Cardinals are so invested in him to begin with that they'll find a way to get something done at some point early in the summer. The Lamar situation is so unpredictable, Rich. The Ravens, they understand how important trust is to Lamar Jackson and how important relationships are to Lamar Jackson. And that's why they've been so careful talking about it because, they don't want him to think like that you're going out and, saying X, Y, and Z about the way this is going. And so, they've treated this, I would say very, very carefully. And this is going to be up to Lamar. It's different, too, because he represents himself. And so this isn't going to be a conventional negotiation. Like, in a conventional negotiation, a team will go in and lowball the player. You can't do that, when you're dealing directly with a star player. So it's going to be a fascinating negotiation. And there's no sign, that it's going to go horribly when it starts. But it's just hard to say when that one's going to start. Whereas I think with Kyler and the Cardinals – there's a pretty clear promise there from the Cardinals to Kyler that they're going to take care of him. Once we get probably past that mandatory minicamp a month from now.
All right, so then let's make it a little harder, even though we won't get an answer for a while. Who signs a long-term deal first, Lamar or Justin Herbert?
Oh, I'm going to say Lamar. That's a great question, though. I'm going to say Lamar. I think Lamar.
You think Lamar won't go a franchise tag? You don't think the Chargers win, or?
You know what?
As soon as the third year ends, right? Herbert and the Chargers are going to start talking. You got Burrow and the Bengals, although that will be fascinating. See if the Bengals they'll tell Burrow, we'll enrich you after your third year as opposed to waiting like they normally would do, right? I mean, that'll be fascinating to see if.
And the backdrop to all this, right?
Yeah.
The backdrop to the whole thing is the Watson contract.
Oh,
and the fact that Watson got 5 years fully guaranteed. And I can still remember when Kirk Cousins did his contract in 2018, I remember asking around, is this going to be the new standard? And a bunch of people told me, no, it's going to really boil down to what happens with the next few contracts. And if the next few contracts look like this, then then that adjusts the way the league does business. If it doesn't turn out that way, well, then it's probably going to be going back to business as usual. And sure enough, Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers signed contracts after that were more conventional in structure and guarantees and everything else. And so, for all of these guys, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, there's, I think, beyond just wanting to get what you're worth, there's also a little bit of pressure there on those guys. Like, if those guys do conventional quarterback contracts, well, then we're probably just back to business as usual. Whereas if they don't, if they push hard for fully guaranteed contracts, that could be a real game changer for all players.
So, I mean, Michael Bidwell's first in that clock right now, right?
Right. And it's him, and it's going to be we don't know what Lamar's going to ask for, but that's out there. And then when we get, and you said, the Burrow Cincinnati one's fascinating because as policy, this is team policy, they have not guaranteed future years and contracts in the past. And so what happens now if Joe Burrow comes to them and he'd have every right to do this because he's already got them to a Super Bowl and says, I'm not signing anything that doesn't guarantee every dollar. And I think it's going to, I think there are a few of these that are going to be really fascinating where there's pressure on the players. And in some cases, like I said, like the Burrow Cincinnati example where the players, may actually ask teams to drastically change their own precedents. It's going to be really, really interesting to follow over the next, I'd say 12 months or so.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.